Sam Shaw here, founder of Wall Street Mastermind. Excited to be back today with another client interview for you guys. Today, I'm excited to have Hyunjae on with us, and I'm excited to have him on because he's been with us for quite a long time. It's been, I guess, almost a year and a half now, a little less than a year and a half. But so he's gone through the entire recruiting journey from recruiting for a summer internship to more recently recruiting for his full-time offer. And he recently just got his full-time offer, and it was a very great offer. He had a very tough decision to make between the full-time offer and his summer internship, but ultimately I think he made a great choice. And so I just want to get him to come on here and talk to you guys about his whole experience and how he got to where he is today, and also hopefully give you some insights on how he was able to accomplish his goals, and hopefully that will help you accomplish yours as well, right? So Hyunjae, I want to thank you for taking the time to be here with us today. And if you don't mind, maybe you can just start off by introducing yourself briefly so that our audience kind of knows who you are.
Got it. Well, first off, I'd like to say thank you for having me. And then to start off, I grew up in, my name is James Ko, and I grew up in California ever since I was 9. So I was born in Korea, moved over. I wanted to play golf growing up. So I actually had a golfing background. So could be a bit different from rest of you guys, but I really started studying my junior year in high school, and then got to where I am. I got to NYU Stern, which is a great choice, largely influenced by my parents, but also my sister, who also went to NYU, so that was a great help. And then I was actually the first one at Stern from my high school, because my high school wasn't relatively old. It's only been around for like 10 years now. So I, didn't have any alumni from my school, and then I had no idea what banking was. I had no idea about finance. All I knew was business. That was it, like the term business. And then, when I got to Stern, the funny thing is I'm a class of 2023, and a lot of COVID happened, and it took away half of my college years. So a lot of things that I could have learned at a business school at Stern, I really wasn't learning. One, I could have been more proactive, and I wasn't. I just fell behind the game in terms of recruiting. So, I had to join Wall Street Mastermind, for those purposes. And look, it's been great. It's been a long journey. It's been very helpful, but, I'm thankful where I am today, and I'm thankful to share any type of help I can give to you guys.
Yeah, awesome. So to be clear, you were in Korea until how old?
When I was 9. So I came when I was 9 years old and grew up in California.
Oh, okay, guys. So your high school was in California, but it's just like a relatively new high school, basically.
Yep.
Gotcha. Okay. And so let's start from, you just mentioned you're really happy to be where you are today. So let's start with that. Like, can we tell people where you've decided to go after you graduate?
Yeah, so I've decided to go to JP Morgan for full-time investment bank analyst role.
Awesome. Okay, so and I was alluding to this earlier, and people are probably wondering, but like I told people you had a very tough decision to make between obviously the JP Morgan offer and where you interned over the summer. Can you talk about that decision and kind of like why it was so tough for you?
Yeah, because I've interned last summer, so at sophomore summer internship at a very good firm, and I learned a lot from there. And then I decided that I wanted to do credit investing, so credit buy side role. So that's kind of where my interest was, and specifically in distressed credit, which is more of a niche thing. Maybe not less now because a lot of firms do distress investing, but at least in terms of the whole firm aspect. But yeah, so this summer I was able to intern at a credit buy side firm, and I did get some exposure to distress, albeit it's not a distress specific firm, but I was pitching some investments that were distressed, which I really found interesting. And then I got the offer from JP Morgan. I was caught between the two, and that's why it was a hard choice. It was, one, do I go for the brand value of JP Morgan and the skill set and the stamp that I get for working in investment banking for 2 years, or do I do something that I like at a great firm too? Because the firm that I worked this summer, we're pretty unknown and it's pretty small, very lean team. We don't even have 100 people on the firm yet, but we are recognized as one of the top funds for what we do. So that was a tough choice. I'm not going from like a mediocre firm to a great firm. I'm going from good firm to good firm. Yeah. So that was a tough choice to make.
Yeah, gotcha. So just to be clear, you're saying your sophomore summer internship and junior summer internship were at the same place, or
they were at different places. So sophomore summer internship, I worked at a Guggenheim, So that was a good opportunity for me too.
Gotcha. Okay, cool. So got it. So that all makes sense. So obviously, let's go back to the beginning then. Like we know where you ended up, right? JP Morgan, obviously great firm, like, top 3 investment bank, I would say. Most people would agree with that, right?
Right.
If we go back to the beginning, prior to joining Wall Street Mastermind, because you and I were talking about this before we came on here, but you joined Wall Street Mastermind, I guess like towards the end of sophomore year, right? It was like, I think like April of sophomore year was when that happened.
Right.
And so prior to that, had you already been doing a bunch of recruiting and preparation on your own, or was that like when you actually first started preparing for the recruiting process?
In terms of starting, I probably started about 3-4 months before, so like around December, like between my first semester, sophomore, second semester. Now, obviously, it wasn't as efficient. I didn't know what I was doing, and I was just doing whatever. And I'll give you a little bit of a funny story. I applied to around 800 jobs on LinkedIn and whatever hiring post from during my sophomore year, and that is quite a lot. I wasn't applying, I was applying left and right. I was applying to internship. I was applying to analyst roles. It didn't matter because, I just wanted to let the firms know that I was there. So I actually applied to a lot of firms, and, not just applied, but really, really preparing for even like your resume and stuff is a lot of work, which I did. But, after joining Wall Street Mastermind in April, obviously I cut down all of that. I just did what I had to do, which is a whole different story, I can tell you.
Yeah. Out of the 800 jobs or internships that you applied for, like, what kind of results did you see from doing that? Like, did you get a lot of interviews, or like?
I actually know the exact number because I've been telling this to my friends a lot. I got 4 interviews out of 800. I don't know the percentage. It's probably like 0.5% or something like that. But it's not only, that's not the worst part. I also reached out. Actually, no, I reached out after Wall Street Mastermind. I didn't know about cold emails and stuff like that before Wall Street Mastermind. But yes, I only got four offers. I mean, 4, not offers, 4 interviews.
Got it. Did you get any offers?
Yeah, I got 1 offer, but it was a firm that sells insurance.
Okay.
Yeah.
Not really what you were looking for, basically.
No. Yeah.
Okay. Aside from like applying for a bunch of jobs, which obviously sounds like, and we hear stuff like this, which is like people, it wasn't for like a lack of work ethic, and it's not for like a lack of trying, just like people are just like brute forcing their way through the process.
Right. Without knowing what to
do. Did you do anything else aside from like just applying for jobs? Like, sounds like you didn't really know how to network back then, so you weren't doing that.
Yeah.
Right? How were you going about like your interview preps and things?
Yeah,
like that?
I mean, look, I want to, again, even at that stage, I only knew what investment banks were, what private equity was, but I didn't know what they do, like specifically what the interns or the analysts do. So in terms of like technical preps, I wasn't doing those. In terms of like the work I put in for applying, I guess, was really polishing my resume and cover letter. That was about it. Because going to Stern, we're a business undergrad school.
Yeah.
Obviously, there's a lot of clubs that really, help kids, in Stern. So that was kind of the help that I got, and really talking to like the seniors when I was freshman and sophomore. So really getting from their experience, but they can only help you so much, right?
Yeah, got it. Okay, so you were in these clubs on campus.
Yeah.
But mostly what they were helping you with was like polishing a resume and cover letter. So you spent most of your time doing that.
Yeah.
And just applying for jobs. But I guess whatever you guys ended up polishing, like, didn't really get you very many interviews, basically.
Yeah, not just that, but I didn't have anything on my resume to begin with, so that was hard. That was tough too.
Got it. Okay, got it. So by the time you joined Wall Street Mastermind, like around April of sophomore year, are you saying your resume had like no relevant experience on it then, or like what shape was it in at the time?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it was very, one, the format was probably terrible too. But two, yes, the experiences were very I had a wealth management firm, but it's like a local branch. So it's not like, those wealth management firms like in New York. That's, in my opinion, pretty reputable, but it was like a local branch in the city that I grew up in. And I
Yeah.
also had, and I also put put in a resume for really kind of my dad's company in Korea, which I doubt is had zero help.
Right.
So
Right.
that was about it. And to be fair, I didn't work in that company, so that was just that's what a lot of people did, and
Right.
going
Fair.
this is freshman year, right? So yeah.
Yeah, in the beginning, you got to start with somewhere. So,
Right, right.
okay. So then, like, what made you want to join Wall Street Mastermind, like, towards the end of sophomore year then? Like,
Yeah. So I just came across Wall Street Mastermind. I forget if it was LinkedIn or whatever other sources, but I came across it, and then one, obviously you guys are marketing as will help you get investment banking, and coming from Stern, I don't know how many what's our class size, but if it's 500, literally 400 is trying to get into investment banking. So I knew, so it's a tough race, and that's why I was like, look, I know I'm behind because I have few friends who already got into firms. And by the way, they were great firms like Julian Loki, PJT, and at that point I didn't know about them. So that kind of speaks to where I was at that, at sophomore year in April.
yeah,
But yeah, like that, that was really the motivation. I wanted to, get back on track and, have an advantage. I was clearly not going to make it if I just stayed that way.
yeah, got it. Okay. So primarily then you joined Wall Street Mastermind because you were looking for a way to catch up because you felt like you were behind
Yes, precisely.
and you have friends around you that were like already getting offers and you felt like you were still at like the starting line basically.
Right, right. And, coming from, a good school that is feeder school I mean, that's like a target school, which felt worse.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Um, did you have like any skepticism when you were initially thinking about joining? Like,
I mean, of course, with everything, I mean, I'd probably have more skepticism if it was a free course. But with that said, obviously the price, and what they do, like a lot of consulting services, right? Like you have to have some skepticism with it. And and also I think when I joined, I forget the number, but it was I think Wall Street Mastermind only had around like 200 or 300 members. So that was, even that was a bit of a small reach, right? It was like, is this trustable? Have these guys been around for a while? So that was skepticism I had. But
yeah,
again, to be fair, it was an investment I made on myself, really. Well, it was more like investment that my family made for me. But right. I mean, because I'm not like as a freshman that really didn't work at all. I forget the cost, but I didn't have that much money
yeah,
for myself, right? So it was obviously I had to let my parents know about it, and then tell them why I wanted to do it
yeah,
and where I was currently, and I think they were saying, look, if it's a fraud, at least you learn something in the process that these things don't exist. But if it's not, it'll be good for you. And all they asked for me was just try my best, and then don't just waste it. Was all
yeah.
they.
Got it. So your parents were like super supportive, basically, like because I know a lot of parents, if they're worried that something might be like not legitimate or whatever, like they're not going to spend that money, right? But it sounds like,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah. My I was very fortunate enough to have a family that's very supportive. But not just that, they really didn't push me. Like growing up, they didn't push me to go to the best colleges. They didn't push me to go to Harvard. Like that's why really I wanted to become a professional golfer, because that's really what I love to do. That's what I wanted to do like growing up.
yeah,
And then when I decided I wasn't good enough, I was like, I should go back to academics, and they supported me that way too. So I was very fortunate and lucky to have them.
yeah. Okay. Um, that's great, man. Because so often like we run into students who really want to work with us, but then like their parents aren't supportive or don't understand it, don't understand why they need this, and then like that's like literally ends up being the only reason why they can't work with us, which ends up
Right.
being a huge bummer for them, right? So it's great to hear that you have supportive parents. So after you join Wall Street Mastermind, then like it's like mid-April, right? Of your sophomore year. Walk me through kind of like what you did after joining, like how did things change for you? And like what were some of the things that you started doing that maybe you weren't doing before, that you found to be the most helpful for you in this throughout this process?
Yeah. So I forget which part of April I joined, but probably around May, starting from May to around, I'll say July. First thing, the biggest thing was I started cold emailing. I started reaching out to these guys, networking, and I networked. I think I sent out around 50 emails, per day, which is quite a lot because there actually aren't that many people working in finance. If you actually think about the whole number.
Yeah.
Right. So that was quite a lot. Obviously I started, that was one of the things I first started, but, I polished my resume and then I started learning about, what the interviews would actually be like. Cause, I had an interview for an insurance company, which is quite different than obviously these firms that I wanted to interview for. So
Right.
started studying for technical, started studying for behavioral stuff like that. So, that's really where I got to it. But, and I would say the biggest difference was that, I got a summer internship after my sophomore year purely off networking. I didn't even apply to the firm, and it was a great firm too. So
Right. It was Guggenheim, you said.
right, it was a great firm, and I purely just, which is quite funny. And I hate to share this with a lot of people because now they just want to copy what I did, and which I feel terrible because I'm just sharing how I got it, but now I feel bad for how the guy who I network with will get a lot of emails from, but
Well, we
I
don't tell them who you, we don't have to tell them who you emailed.
right. But I network with a very senior person, and obviously we learned to network with the analysts, the associates, but at that time, to be fair, to be very clear with you, I really just wanted to fill up the 50 mark because that was the goal I set for myself. So I was just sending out emails left and right to everyone across the firm. Now, looking back, do I recommend that? Absolutely not. I think it's an absolute waste of time to send that way too much email every day.
Yeah.
But that's how desperate I was. If I could tell you how desperate I was.
Yeah, well, I mean, I will say one thing about you, like from what you told me so far, the fact that you applied to 800 different jobs yourself, like, the fact that you sent, 50 emails a day once you decided to start networking, like, let's just say you probably have a work ethic that's surpasses what most people I've seen typically have, right? Like most people are not going to go through all of that trouble to achieve their goals, but you're willing to do that. And so, I mean, I think for sure that's part of the reason that makes you successful, right? Because you're willing to do things that other people aren't willing to do. But coming back to this story though, so you networked with a really senior person at the firm, and what? And then he's just like, here you go. Here's an internship.
No. In fact, it was a little bit different, right? Instead of saying hello, I said, "Dear Mr." Last name, stuff like that. I made it a little bit more formal. And then, I obviously said I admire, where his work is, which is a bit different than a format that, you teach.
Right.
But so he literally just replied one line. He said, "Thanks for the kind note. Where do you live?" That was it. And I got the email 6:30 a.m. next morning. The only reason why I was awake at that time was because I was actually out playing golf with my friends around 6:30 a.m. And of course, I replied to him like literally 2 minutes after I got the email, and he never replied me back. But literally, I think 2 days afterwards, I get an email from an HR team saying they like to interview me for this position. And of course, I know, that it was him that pushed it through.
Right. Gotcha. Wow. Okay. So you sent him an email to like try to get him on a call. He sent you a one-liner reply, and you replied to that email within 2 minutes, and then he gave you the interview.
Right. But he didn't reply to my my reply email. But yes, that's how I got the interview. Right afterwards.
That's hilarious. And then what? Like at that point, were you prepared for the interview already, or I mean, obviously you got the job, but like.
No, I wasn't, because if you think about it, it wasn't an investment banking role; it was buy side role. So and that was a credit focused firm. Of course, the team I ended up working on wasn't just credit focused; it was both equity and credit. But I didn't know what I couldn't prepare for an interview that I never had. Although I studied for accounting, stuff like that. But the actual interview, it really didn't consist of that much technical. It was really a lot about behavioral, because I think they knew that I didn't know anything, being like a sophomore, just a sophomore.
Yeah.
So it actually went more smoother than I thought, and they actually gave me the return call, the call from HR, around 2 weeks after I did the interview. So I thought I failed it. I thought I wasn't going to get there. Yeah.
That's hilarious. So did you ever meet this guy that ended up referring?
No, I never. But I will tell you a funny story though. When I started working, so this was remote. So I worked from California, which was a bummer because I had to wake up at like 5 a.m. Just for the time difference. But no, when I started working midway through, my senior MD gave me a report to do on, a bond that was about to come up. I think this is just when President Biden just got into his office. So I think they were working on this infrastructure deal, like a $1 trillion infrastructure like legislation.
Yeah.
And yeah, my senior MD to do a research report on this, and it was way different than what I was doing this whole summer. And then I did it for him. I gave him I think it was like 2 or 3 page, like a research report based off like a template they had. And I just sent it to him. And I think like a week later, the senior MD like pings me on email and sent me an article on Financial Times. And the guy I networked with, he posted on Financial Times about that bond, that report that I did, which that was pretty cool. But I never heard anything from him ever again.
So the partner you initially networked with was the one that posted or wrote an article.
Yes.
That you worked on. Okay.
Right. So he was his boss, kind of. Yeah.
Ah, I see. That's hilarious. Yeah, okay, so he's like so senior that like you probably just like didn't even get to interact with him, but nonetheless, he helped you.
Yeah.
Honestly, that's an amazing story.
Right. I mean, that's why I kind of hate to say. No, I mean, I shared it with a lot of my friends and people who asked, but they asked for who you did it with, and I don't recommend it because I mean, think about it. Those guys don't have time for us. Don't have time for college students. They're not going to reply. I just want to say I got super lucky that he found my email to begin with. Yeah. So it was just like, I don't know. I don't know if I'll recommend it. Like, but at the end of the day, looking back, that is kind of how I got that job. So.
Dude, that thing changed your life because.
Right. Literally, I really did. Because if you look at it from a bigger perspective, after I got that job, I went from getting 4 interviews for 800 jobs to getting almost all interviews afterwards. Mm-hmm. Like I was like my junior year first semester and like the summer around starting July, which by the way, like that is a bit late now because recruiting game's so early. But of the firms that were left, I had a day like in my first semester junior year where I actually had to miss like the whole day of classes because I interviewed from like 10 to 1, like a super day, then like 2 to 2:30 first round, and then like interview schedule at like 4:30 to 5, like I don't know, with the HR, something like that, where I had like 3-4 interviews in one day. Yeah. And that really just happened because I got that job sophomore year. And right, it changed my life. I agree with you.
I was actually going to say, I have been encouraging a lot of our students to actually network with more senior people.
I see. Yeah.
Because like you're going to spend the same amount of time trying
right. That is true.
Senior person, but like if the senior person likes you, they can just make things happen. If a junior person likes you, a lot of times they can't do anything. Like
right.
They'll give you advice, but like that's not really that valuable, right? And so so I actually think you're saying you got lucky, but I actually think you did the right thing, right? And so, but that's great. So like, obviously networking made a huge difference for you.
Yeah.
Right?
100%.
What about like on the interview prep side of things? So obviously like this interview was very last minute. You didn't you didn't have time to do that much prep. What about like for your subsequent interviews after like for your junior summer internship recruiting and full-time recruiting, like how did you go about doing that?
Yeah, I mean, I'll be the first to admit, if I study for it, your modules a lot more back then, I probably would have found this much, this. I don't even want to say success because it's different to everyone, but I would have found this offer earlier, during my actual, recruiting for junior internship. But I didn't. For a lot of the technical aspect, I still lacked a lot, and I can't emphasize enough. Out of all technicals, it's not about the M&A, it's not about the LBO. In fact, most of my interviews, I don't think they ever asked about LBO. But it's really, you have to focus on accounting. Accounting interview questions will always be asked, and that I overlooked because I took 2-3 classes on accounting my freshman year, sophomore year. So I thought I skipped it. I thought I was good at, kind of good enough to just skip it and just answer the questions on the fly, which I wasn't, which is why. I'm shameless. I'm very easy to admit saying that I did not get a return offer for the amount of super days. I probably had around 20 to 25 super days. I only got one. Well, at the end, I got around 3 or 4, but that was it. The only reason why I recruited for so long was because I wasn't getting the offers, right? So like, I wish I studied a lot more back then during the summer,
Yeah.
but I didn't. But going back to your question, the modules, I personally really love the mock interviews. I think the mock interviews are really great. You just, like you get to practice. And the mock interviews, by mock interviews, I mean the ones that you answer. The ones you're answering, like those are really just a great template to answer the questions that you're asked. And which a lot of times, especially in banking, a lot of technical questions and behavioral, they're all the same, just with different firms. So it's really just repetition that matters.
Yeah.
So, right. It helps a lot.
And just for viewers' context, because they probably don't know what you're talking about. You're talking about like at the end of our technical modules where we have like mock interview questions that you can practice with, and then
Yeah.
I recorded how I would answer those questions.
Right. And then, like, I guess to dive a little bit deeper, what I did, after watching those interviews you recommend us to, write our answer down and then, or like record our answer and then compare it with yours. Yeah, I did that too. But also I wrote down your answer, which I really wish you had a transcript on there where I could just copy and paste, but I didn't. So I had to pause every other second to really just catch up with what you're writing.
Wow.
But that's what I did. And, because, obviously my thinking is you're much more knowledgeable in all these than I am. So I want to structure my answer similar to yours, right? So that's kind of how I went about it. So I think I have all of your technical side structured answers. Right. Like it has a transcript, just so I could practice off that. Because the thing is, right? I mean, everyone who's recruiting, they'll probably know there's like Wall Street Prep, Red Book. There's the 400 questions from Merger and Inquisition.
Yeah.
The problem with those book is, one, it's way too long. It's gonna take you like at least a month to fully understand everything. I mean, that's saying like you put in the work every day for a month. But two, like the answers are like textbook. They're not conversational. So it's actually like, I almost felt like the mock interviews that you had were like kind of like a cheat code where I could literally just structure the answers based off what you say and really, formulate based on different questions. And I think it was, that was for me the quickest way to really get to where I am. And I'm not saying I skipped over your other modules. I think the other modules are just as important because that's where you get the understanding of, like, if they ask you what's the concept behind it, if I just go off the mock interview, I'm not going to be able to answer it. Right. But yeah, no, that was really what's helpful.
Gotcha. Okay, man, that's crazy. I didn't know you transcribed all of the answers I gave. I should ask you for the transcription, dude. I bet you someone else wants those transcriptions now. The people that are in the program now.
Right. I mean, for those who like to study, that's probably the best way to study. Just create it on Word and just memorize it. Almost.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, that's awesome. And so it sounds like in hindsight, like if there's one thing that you could change, it would just be that you could have done a better job going through the modules, or you could have. Did you like not finish going through the modules? Is that what you're saying, or you like went through it but you just like didn't really retain the information, or when you
right, it's both. One, I didn't finish like the modules, for example, like accounting and some behavioral, and even for like LBOs, I would say I didn't finish most of them. But yeah, that too, going through the modules. But also, I was working sophomore summer, so after I got Wall Street Mastermind. And two, I started getting interviews like left and right. So it could be that I got cocky where I was like, well, I'm getting interviews. I'm going to get one of these offers someday. Yeah. And obviously I could have been more wrong, but right. It was just, I was at that state where I just had so many interviews where I actually had less time to prepare for those interviews than reaching out, trying to get the interviews, which in hindsight, if I can go back to April, obviously first thing would be, I wish I joined earlier, but two, it would be that I studied technicals and behavioral, because I'm a firm believer technical only gets you like to 50%. Like if you fail technical, you're not going to get the offer. Yeah. But if you like behavioral is the part that gets you the offer. That's my belief, because at the end of the day, they're hiring a person, they're not hiring a computer. Right. Right. So to all those who are watching, I really want to emphasize how important behavioral aspect is. Like it's really important that you get that down. So going back, I would have loved to really grill down the interview, like prep session first, and then, get the amount of interviews. I would actually prefer that I got less interviews afterwards, like, and then just, grill that down so I could, at least get a few offers early on, which I didn't.
Right, right, gotcha. So did you have time to prep for the behaviorals then? Like,
Yeah, so, the behavioral around, I forget, it was like July, August, or September, early on in my junior year, first semester. I really, grilled down my behavioral section, and then I really grilled down on, like, tell me about yourself, why banking, why this firm, stuff like that. In which you do teach actually per question. There's a module per question on behavioral, so obviously that was very helpful. I really probably for that, I also formatted off your answers or how you were changing it. So that's, it's funny because I actually wondered if a lot of Wall Street mastermind guys interview for the same position. I just feel like we aren't going to get the offer because we're almost saying the same thing, which that was also one of a concern that I also had because, a lot of my answers were very similar to what you were saying. Besides, obviously, tell me about yourself because that, I mean, you can't copy, tell me about yourself.
right.
Right. But for like the other ones, like why banking, like it's a very, why banking is a very interesting question because it's a generic question and they know what you're going to answer.
Yeah.
And they're not looking for a special one because you run the risk of looking like a complete idiot. But like why, like for questions like why banking, like maybe less on why this firm, but like so like those generic questions, I feel like I probably had a similar answer to you or how you taught it.
My guess is, I mean, so we edit everyone's answers. Not everyone like, uses our exact answers, but some people sometimes in some instances will use like an answer that's very similar to like
Right.
examples that we give in the modules, right? And by the way, we're not, just so everyone knows, like what we're doing is we're not telling people like, hey, just say this, and this is like, this will get you the job. Like, we do give examples of how you might answer each specific question, but what we're actually doing is we're giving people a framework. So like, hey, these are the 4 or 5 elements that you need to have in each answer, and then you go and kind of like fill in the blank on how you want to address each of those elements, right? And so typically everyone's answer is going to be slightly different, but I think the other thing too, though, I mean, you do bring a great point, which is like, hey, if everyone is like, doing what you guys are teaching, then like, what happens if they're going for the same job? I think the beauty of it is that Wall Street Mastermind is, we're like small enough where, like, when we look at like the number of applicants that are actually applying for investment banking every year, which actually is like, it's like hundreds of thousands of people. I think like 1 to 200,000 people.
Right.
And then you look at like the number of students that we actually work with from every single class, like class of 2023, class of 2024, so on and so forth. I think I did the math once. We're working with like 0.1% of like the entire population that's applying for these jobs, basically. And so like, it's not like, because you run into the same problems. Like, okay, everyone's reading the Breaking the Wall Street guide. Everyone's reading the Wall Street guide. Everyone's reading Wall Street prep like guide or whatever. Like the most popular 2 or 3 interview guides, like those actually are literally probably used by like 80 to 90% of the people.
Right.
So like that you actually do run into issues, but for us, it's like, yeah, 0.1% of the people of the entire population are actually in Wall Street Mastermind. So it's like, I don't think we really actually run into that problem.
Right. Which is good. Which I mean, I don't think I ran into the problem. Otherwise, I won't be here. But and kind of to go back. I mean, that's just one section of interview, right? Your interview is a 30-minute one, which is short. But even in that short interview, there are a lot of questions that you can differentiate from the others. Like, and there are questions that you should differentiate, and there are questions that you kind of shouldn't. So I think even understanding when I should and when I shouldn't really kind of is from the modules that you have.
Yeah, and I think like also the point I want to make there too is this, right? Like the top banks, like the Goldman Sachs, JP Morgan, Morgan Stanley's of the world, even like the elite boutique banks, like all these firms, they're probably only accepting between like 1 to 2% of their applicant pool every day.
Right.
And so like, if you think about just literally that statistic,
right.
If and then ask yourself, like, if the way you're currently approaching your preparation process is the exact same thing that 80 to 90% of the people out there are doing, then like, what exactly is your competitive advantage, and what do you think is gonna, allow you to end up as like, someone in the top 1 or 2%, right?
Right.
Versus like, if a job is this selective and the vast majority of people are doing this, you probably want to be doing something different that other people aren't doing.
Right. 100%, 100%.
And that's just math.
Yeah, it is. And, and I was applying for New York office. I could probably tell you that New York office percentage is lower than a 1%. It is it's harder. Like I'd say all the time, it's hard to get into like these banks than to college by far. 100%.
Well, and for you, it was even harder because you recruited for full-time.
Right. Yes, this full-time was, I really think I got lucky because I see a lot of talented people who, one, didn't get the return, but two, just don't have like jobs that are open because right now the markets are not good. So they're not getting full-time opportunities. So it's a killer. I really got lucky where I got the interview, and thankfully I did a good enough job where I got the return.
Yeah, because I was gonna say, like, you recruit for full, so for people that aren't familiar with recruiting, like, there's a lot fewer jobs available for full-time because most of the jobs have already been given to summer interns. This year it was extra bad because the market has slowed down and like a lot of banks are cutting back on hiring. A lot of like didn't even give like, usually the offer rate for the intern class, like in a good market could be pretty high, but this year, like at a lot of firms, it was actually like a lot lower than usual. So like a lot of people didn't get return offers. That means those people are also flooding the market and looking for time jobs. And so a lot of like, we actually know of multiple like top tier firms, both back end boutique firms are just like, yeah, we're not hiring at all for full time this year because there's like, they don't have enough jobs even for their own intern class, right? And so the degree of difficulty is like even higher. Right?
100%. I know personally, I know a very top bulge bracket firm that, which I still can't believe this, but they actually cut intern, which I never heard of midsummer.
Like they fired.
Yeah, right, because the group was doing very poorly, which when I first heard it, I was assuming it's sales and trading, the trading aspect, not the investment banking. But that I can't confirm which group it is, which division it is. But even though like cutting intern is kind of unheard of in my opinion. You just don't give them offer. But that just when I knew, wow, places are going bad. It's not going to be a great full-time market right now.
I'm gonna have to ask you off camera.
Yeah. I will tell you.
But I heard a similar. Actually, like I know someone who, like 1 week before the internship ended, HR basically laid him off. Didn't even let him finish the internship.
Wow.
And the reason they gave him was because I guess if you order dinner, you're supposed to stay in office past 8 p.m. or something. And then so they said there were 7 instances over the summer where he ordered dinner on Seamless, but left the office before 8 p.m.
Wow.
And so they used that as the reason to like lay him off.
Right.
And I was just like, wow, that's really unfortunate. I mean, you shouldn't have broken the rules, but also like that's a pretty BS reason to lay you off. And in a good market, that would never happen.
Right.
Yeah.
And that, not just that, I mean that, and obviously a lot of your clients want to make it into the EBs and the bulge bracket investment banks. But I entered that buy side firm this summer, and I have a lot of friends who also entered that buy side firms. And like obviously because of, unless we're like mega funds, like a lot of middle market ones, it's a very leaner team. So you get more like closer to like the management team. And one of my friends asked his boss, like, what's my feedback like? What it was like the return offer looking like. And they were giving him a very, BS reason, saying, we don't know yet. We don't know what our budget will be and stuff like that. And, he's really worried out of his mind that he won't get a return. But he is, of course, I don't know all the people, but he's the smartest person I know from my school. So that's saying a lot. And it's very interesting market right now for sure.
Yeah. So like, how did you find out about this opportunity? I know we got to wrap up soon, but like, how did you find out about this full-time opportunity? Because like barely anyone's recruiting, right? So like, how did you just like network your way into getting this interview, or how did that happen?
No, actually for JP Morgan, I didn't network at all. Because one, JP Morgan, I had a couple of alumni that went to JP Morgan that I'm very close with, that I go out to drinks with when I was in college. So, I have very close connection, but they can't refer to my understanding. I know they were saying the junior people can't refer. There's no like referring thing. So that's why I was like, you know what, maybe it's not worth it to network. I'll still network. Should I go back in time? But I didn't. But I found out this full-time offer because they posted it on their like website. It wasn't even on Handshake. It was just on their corporate site. Like I think end of June. And I was like, it's only going to take me 10 minutes to apply to this thing. Might as well. And this is like beginning of my internship. I didn't know I didn't know if they're going to give me a return, but two, I wanted, like a backup safety option. Excuse me, a backup safety option. So that's kind of how I found about it. I applied and I got the Super Day invite August 3rd.
Okay,
So
so you applied in June, but you didn't get the.
no, right. I did the higher view because JP Morgan's higher view and then straight to Super Day. So I did the higher view like right away, but it took a month and a half basically.
Okay, got it. Wow, that's amazing, man. I mean, look, again, there's always an element of luck involved, but I mean, in this case, I think, again, you have to like, I feel like luck is like setting yourself up to be in the right place at the right time.
Right.
You like, even though you had just started your summer internship, you were still like keeping your eyes peeled on the market in terms of like what opportunities are available and checking the corporate website, which like a lot of people probably wouldn't be doing that, right? And so that's how you found out about the opportunity. And lo and behold, not that you were expecting it, that's where you ended up. Right. So
right.
that's really awesome. I guess last question for you. So like, what's one piece of advice that you have for people that haven't gone through recruiting yet or are about to go through recruiting? Like if you think back on like maybe there's something that like made a huge difference for you or something that someone told you that helped you a lot. Like, is there anything that you want to pass down to other people?
I mean, there's so many, but in terms of like, I'll give you two actually. One specifically, like for recruiting purpose, would be to really, as I said before, really master your technicals and behavioral. Like get the interview prep done, because once you get the interview, it's not about what school you went to. It's really not. I mean, I don't know personally, but I think at that point, it's really not about the person either. It's really about the interview itself. Like if you excel in your interview, you have a good shot at getting it. So really grill down, your interview skills. Like you should get that mastered. And just the overall thing, which I mean, it might sound cliche, but it's hard to be smarter than others in my opinion. Like it's really hard to be smarter than others. Like there's so many smart people out there. There's so many geniuses. And I'm sure a lot of you guys will know too. Like, there's always going to be that smarter person in your room that you're in. But it's actually not that hard to outwork others. Like I think it's a lesson that, I mean, I learned this summer too. But it's if you just put in 1 hour, like more effort, like every day, like already in a month, that's 30 hours. But if you take it in 2 years, that's 365 more hours. And if you just take that to 3 years, that's 1,200 hours. Like it's a lot of just incremental stuff that if you just put in that like 2% more work every day, that's going to pay a lot of dividend down the future.
Yeah, that's a really good one, man. It all adds up, right? It's like you don't feel it in the beginning initially when you're like, okay, you put in an extra hour of work, but it all accumulates and it becomes a huge thing, right?
Right, 100%. For those of you who work out, it's literally like working out. Like you're not gonna see a difference in like first month, but if you do it for like a year, you're gonna see a whole difference.
Right. Yeah, I would expect you to say that because you're the guy that sent out 800 job applications and 15 emails a day. So
I mean, I wish I wish I didn't have to do it. Like I felt like I had to do it just to catch up, right? I felt like I was way behind. I wish I was like the others, like especially going to Stern. There's so many like kids who literally work at Goldman sophomore year, and I'm not just talking about like that BS sophomore job. I'm talking about legit sophomore internship and then get a return then. So, there are so many guys like that, but, just having them around, I kind of use it as motivation, right? I said, look, I'm not going to be a bum out of Stern. Like I want to get to a good place.
Gotcha. Okay. Awesome, man. That's really great insight, honestly. And really great piece of advice for people. So, guys, for those of you that are still with us, if you know, you're currently going through recruiting, or you're about to go through recruiting, and you're feeling behind, you know, maybe kind of just like Hyunjae was, and you are looking for a way to catch up, and you understand that you need to be doing something different from what everyone else is doing, and you're looking for that competitive advantage, then I want to encourage you to reach out, schedule a call with our team. In fact, before you even do that, like what we're doing now is you can reach out, you can actually book a free virtual coffee chat with someone who's like just an upperclassman who's already gone through the recruiting process, and has done our program, and they've already successfully gotten an offer. Basically, they're like where you want to be, right? You can just talk to them. It's like a networking call. You can ask them for whatever advice you want. Ask them, you know, how they got to where they are. You can ask them about the program if you want, or if you don't want to, you don't have to. But like regardless, just have a conversation, get some advice, and then if after you talk to them, if you still are interested in working with us, then they can help you set up a call with our team, and we're by application only, and then we'll like evaluate your situation and see if we can really help you. Or if after you talk to them, you're like, no, I don't want to work with Wall Street Mastermind at all, then no worries. Just take the advice that you got and go and, you know, go out and do whatever you want with it, and you don't have to talk to our team at all, right? So either way, if you guys are interested in speaking to an upperclassman and having that free virtual coffee chat, you can go schedule that at www.wallstreetmastermind.com/apply. The street is abbreviated to ST, so it's wallstmastermind.com/apply. And we look forward to talking to you. All right. So with that said, hey man, I want to congratulate you again on obviously an amazing offer. I think this is one of the funner interviews that I've done, because I feel like you have so many interesting stories
Right.
to tell about your journey, and that was really fun for me to hear. But most importantly, just happy for you, man. Someone like you who just honestly, I think outworked most of your competition and put in so much work, and you kind of like came from behind and caught up, and even like quite honestly surpassed a lot of your competition, and that's just a testament to your work ethic, and to your grind and to your resilience. And so huge congrats again, and can't wait to see all the success that you have in front of you, man. And
Thank you. I appreciate it.
yeah, man, definitely keep me posted on how it goes once you start at JP, and you know, don't be a stranger.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Yeah, so guys, we're gonna wrap it up here. That'll be it, and we'll be back with more of these for you guys in the near future. All right, until next time.